Lali-ho everyone, and welcome to the pilot episode of Hellblades' Retroactive Reviews, a new talkie-style show where I break down games that I both love and sometimes hate to find the details of what I do and don't like in them, and give a real number to try to define how I feel about them. Today, we will be talking about Quest 64 as the first game of choice, while I explain how this is going to work in detail. So let's start with some information about the game in question. Quest 64 was released in 1998 in the US by Imagineer, to less than spectacular reviews, for a lot of reasons we will get into. But this game was in fact the first Nintendo 64 game that I personally owned. It was given to me along with my very own Nintendo 64 console, so it does mean that I put a lot of time into the game and honestly ended up loving it. So, let's move on to the review itself and see what went well and what didn't. I plan on doing a much shorter version of this rating explanation within each episode, but here I'm going to give a much more detailed version. I have a 5-piece rating system, numbered from 0 to 10, that will ultimately average the scores and give us an overall score that will be rounded, as well as a grade. The 5 parts are all based on the time that the game was released, not necessarily current, and they are as follows. First up, graphics. How well was the game designed? Do the sprites or polygons look good? Do they clip a lot? Are the colors eye-searing? Those are the questions that this part will seek to answer. Sound design, which will be half from sound effects from 0 to 5, and music from 0 to 5 as well. Combined, that will be the total from 0 to 10. Story, which will be a weighted average based on 3 parts. The story itself, which is what's given to us through the gameplay. That is the primary part of the score, weighing for half, 50% of the story score. Lore is a story that happens before we take control of the game. This will take up about 30% of the story score. And world building, which is how the lore and the world itself is shown to us. Is it NPC dialogue? Is it interesting? Is it fun item descriptions? Those are world building, and that's going to be 20% of the story score. Gameplay. This is going to be the difference between mechanics, where the game has interesting things going for it, and gimmicks, where the game has stupid things that attempt to distract you from just how bad it is. With those explanations out of the way, let's get to the actual review scores of Quest 64. Graphics, 7 out of 10. This game actually looks pretty good for the most part. There's a couple of clipping planes, like Brian's cape and staff, which tend to clip into literally everything. But overall, it looks pretty. The monster designs are unique, mostly. They're interesting at the very least. The world itself is quite beautiful for an N64 game of its time. The only real problem it has is that the dungeons kind of have a lot of areas that look the same. There's a few where it's easy to get very lost because there's no real definition to the world itself. Sound design. 7 out of 10, with sound being 3 and music being 4. The music in this game is really good, and the sound effects are at least passable. Honestly, I find myself humming things with the overworld theme and the battle theme constantly. Even though the variety is certainly where it's hurting, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt myself. Story. 5, 2, and 4, leading to a total of 3.9 out of 10. The story of this game is, well, it's okay. There really isn't anything to speak about in the background. We learn nothing about the before story, and we certainly don't learn much about the current story either, except that our dad went to go track down a stolen book and we're trying to find him. There's a little bit of interesting storytelling, and there's actually a really cool plot twist later on, but outside of that, the story's just, well, unfinished, sadly. Gameplay, 7 out of 10. This is where the game truly shines. Well, ignoring the incompleteness of it. The magic system that defines the game's 3D combat is fantastic, and the way that you level up stats by actually doing things is really unique. I mean, we didn't see anything like that after Final Fantasy II, and actually in the US, I'm pretty sure it may have been the first time we saw it at all. I mean, we would see it again shortly after with Brave Fencer Musashi, which came out a very few months after and still had a similar system, although much simpler to get behind. But then the magic system itself wouldn't be copied for years. The original Magica was the first game that I saw attempt it, and that really isn't an RPG, it's more of a hack and slash. So, as far as I'm aware, the only RPG to use this system is Quest 64. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Replay value, 7 out of 10. The reason I give this a decent score in replay is all the different ways you can play the game. There's at the minimum of 4 different ways you can play it, meaning a different element each time, and you can even go through a 5th way and even out your elements if you really hate yourself. But with multiple ways of playing the game, and you clearly aren't playing it again for the story, it's worth it for me. Overall, 6 out of 10, grade C. This game is honestly not as bad as the official reviews would tell you, but that being said, do not expect an earth-shattering experience. Is my opinion shaded by rose-tinted glasses? Yeah, probably. But do I think the game is worth a shot if you know what you're getting yourself into? Absolutely. So, after the review, I intend to break down that score and look beyond it. Why do I feel it deserves the score it does? Why does the score not speak about how I truly feel about the game? What spoilers make a difference here? Yes, this is the part where I'm going to give a big ol' spoiler alert, because now we're diving into the details and naming things that matter to me personally. So in Quest 64, this game has a bunch of big spikes that hurt in the gameplay score. It has areas like Coal Hazard, the Blue Cavern, the Windward Forest. All 3 of these areas, and many more, trust me, have enemies that are way stronger than anything in their zones. Specifically, and the most notable, is the Wyverns in Coal Hazard. They are the strongest thing in the zone by far, and it's almost always safer just to run from them, even if you can destroy everything else in the zone. And then you have the final boss. He's big, he's kind of annoying to fight, mostly because dodging his attacks can be a little rough, but overall, he's actually kind of easy. At least he's well designed, though. He has a really cool figure. I actually love the final boss. And then you can kind of see the game is very, very unfinished. There are massive empty rooms, NPCs that have basically pointless dialogue, references to things that don't actually happen. In fact, it feels like an RPG Maker project from a person's first RPG. And there's so much here that was left undone that they took those ideas and demaked the game into a Game Boy Color version. They took it and put it into 2D, and they fixed a lot of these issues. Like, the game is much more polished on the Game Boy Color. It really shows you how much they really had going for them. Now, there's not a lot to mention in the spoiler territory of this game in particular. Quest 64, its spoilers are basically like, oh look, Shannon is actually a puppet, which is actually a really cool plot twist. And oh look, Mammon is the final boss. He comes out of nowhere, except he is hinted at by Shannon a lot. Yeah, it's Necron done right. Anyway, but there are going to be other games that I do in this little series that are going to have spoiler territory that is probably as long as the review itself. I do promise you that. And here we have it. I really hope that you enjoyed this look at a new type of entertainment that I have, which will hopefully be easier to find time to record than the videos themselves, as the whole reason this even came to mind was because I've been having trouble finding time to record between work and school and everything else. I want to send a shout out to Sunsides on Pixabay for the intro and outro jingles. Seriously, go check them out. But with that, enjoy the rest of your day. And until next time, We hope to see you again. Later!